So we're going over Al-Qawl Al-Jaliyy. That's the original book in Arabic, Al-Qawl Al-Jaliyy, and we're reading the translation of it that's called the Lucid Word. So the author said, may Allah have mercy upon him, Allah is Al-Wahid. Al-Wahid, one. So who is Wahid? Who is one? The one who has no partner in godhood. Al-Ahad, the indivisible. The one who is not subject to division or partition, meaning the one who cannot be broken into pieces or split into parts, because he is not a body. He is neither a tangible body. Tangible body means can be grabbed by the hand, can be captured in the hand. Like humans, trees, and stones, nor an intangible body, like light, darkness, and wind. Who is Awwal and Qadim, without a beginning. So both of those have the same meaning. Awwal in the literal sense means first. First for Allah means no one existed before him. And the word Awwal in Arabic, as well as the word first in English, do not demand that there's a second. By using the term first doesn't necessitate that there is a second. Like you could say, she had her first baby and it's her only baby. Qadim means for Allah eternal, beginningless, and could mean in the language, not for Allah, ancient. Al-Awwal means the one whose existence is without a beginning. His existence was not preceded by inexistence. Synonymous to Al-Awwal is Al-Qadim when used in reference to Allah. Because the eternity of Allah is essential. That's nice. Yani, it is a necessary attribute of His. And it is not temporal. That means not related to time. Yes. Al-Hayy, yani he is Hayy, alive or living, the one attributed with eternal and everlasting life, i.e., not by means of a soul, flesh, blood, ligaments, or bone marrow. His life is not by this combination of things like ours. Flesh and soul and blood. That's how we live. Life is a beginningless attribute of Allah with real existence. Yes. I.e., it is a positive attribute of Allah. Positive attribute. What's meant here is it's an attribute that confirms. It's a confirming attribute. It's not merely a negating attribute. To say Allah is alive is not merely negating that He's dead. Rather, it confirms something more than existing. Saying He has life is a confirmation of something more than His self, more than existence. It says here, positive attribute in this context means that which has real existence. Yes. Thus, rejecting the misguided doctrine of the Mu'tazila that Allah's attributes like life, knowledge, and power are not really existing. Yes. So if you have any question about that, you can go ahead and ask. Qayyum, the independent who does not need others. That's one of the meanings of Qayyum. Al-Qayyum. It's a name of Allah that is special for Him, cannot be used for anyone else. It might mean the one who's everlasting, like Ad-Da'im, or it might mean the one who's independent, like as-samad, or it might mean the one who has confirmed existence, like al-haq, or it might mean the one who manages everything. Then it means mudabbir, manager. Could you elaborate on confirming and negating attribute? Yes. So of the 13 attributes, there are 3 categories. One is the attribute of existence. It has its own category. So that's called as-sifatun nafsiyah. That means the self attribute. The self attribute. Then, this is the attribute that without it, nothing else is conceivable. Then another category of attributes are called as-salbiyah. The salbiyah, those are the attributes of having no beginning, having no comparison, having no partner, and having no requirement. So as you notice, all those 4 that I just mentioned for you are negating. Not having a beginning, that negates having a beginning. Not having a comparison, that negates having a likeness. Not having a requirement, that negates being in need. Not having a partner, that negates partners or associates. And those attributes, then, they in meaning refer back to the self of Allah Ta'ala. Not something more than the self. Rather, our minds find different meanings here. In our minds, there's a meaning which is not being like something, and then there's another meaning which is not requiring something, and there's another meaning which is not having a partner. All of that goes back, though, to the self of Allah Ta'ala. Not more than existence, not more than existence, not more than the self of Allah. What we're saying is, His self doesn't resemble anything. His self and His attributes have no similar. His self and attributes have no beginning. His self and attributes have no requirement. His self and attributes have no partner. Then there's another category of attributes. They're called ma'ani. Ma'ani means they have a connotation. Ma'ani is plural of ma'na. Ma'na means, in a very loose or literal sense, meaning. The meaning here is that they have some connotation, and their connotation is that they indicate something more than existence. Because when you say alive, you understand from that something more than existing. And when you say knowledgeable or knowledge, you understand something more than existence. So those attributes, which are life, knowledge, power, will, sight, hearing, speech, and everlastingness, those are the ma'ani attributes, which here was translated as positive attributes. I usually say confirming attributes, because those are attributes that confirm something with more than the self. But you need to be mindful here of the wording. When we say more than the self, we're not saying that these attributes are parts or pieces. And we're not saying that the attributes of Allah are something else other than Allah. The right belief is that Allah is neither His attributes nor is He something else. Allah is neither His attributes nor is He something else. That's the right belief. So in summary, that's the answer for your question. Is that clear? Do you have another question? So the author says, Da'im, everlasting, the one who will not become non-existent, nor is it possible that he would go out of existence, because the sound intellect dictates that it is impossible for Allah to be non-existent. Or in other words, it is impossible for non-existence to follow the existence of God. Yani, we talk about God's existence. It is impossible that God's existence be followed by non-existence. Hence, no one is everlasting in that sense except Allah. That's nice. In that sense, we would say, for example, with this meaning, no one is everlasting with this meaning except Allah. No one is everlasting in that sense except Allah. That's to tell the difference between paradise and hell being everlasting and God being everlasting. Because paradise and hell are everlasting by God making them last, while God is everlasting because He's God. It's a necessary attribute of His. Al-Khaliq, the creator, or Khaliq, the creator, the one who brought all the creations from inexistence into existence, meaning He raised them from nothingness into being. Ar-Raziq, the sustainer or the provider, the one who makes livelihood reach his slaves. Yani, it means the one who makes the benefit reach his slaves, because the rizq, Ar-Raziq means the one who makes rizq reach the slaves, and rizq means whatever benefits. But keep in mind, they're translating here from Al-Qawl Al-Jaliyy. So that's the meaning. That's the meaning in the end. Livelihood meaning benefit. Whether it's halal or whether it's haram. Lawful or unlawful. Al-Alim, they said the omniscient. The one who is attributed with the eternal and everlasting attribute of knowledge that does not change. That does not change, increase, decrease, or get renewed. Okay. So, MashaAllah. I just want to look that word up there. Knowing everything, all knowing, all wise, all seeing. Muhit. Then omniscient, then it would be the meaning of muhit, according to what I'm looking at here. Omniscient, all knowing, all wise, all seeing, knowing everything. If it's not limited to knowledge, if being omniscient is not limited to knowledge, then it means muhit. Nice. MashaAllah. Okay. The one who is attributed with the eternal and everlasting attribute of knowledge that does not change, increase, decrease, or get renewed. He is knowledgeable not like other knowledgeable beings, because his knowledge is eternal and the knowledge of others is originated. That means created, has a beginning. Al-Qadir, they said the omnipotent, the omnipotent. Let's look that one up too. Says here, having unlimited power, able to do anything, all powerful, almighty. Yes. Nice, nice. MashaAllah. The one attributed with the consummate power. consummate. Hope you don't mind me looking up these words here. Consummate, a high degree, complete or perfect, ultimate, perfect. Correct. The power of Allah is an eternal and everlasting attribute by which Allah produces an effect on the contingent beings. Nice. Okay. So the power of Allah is an eternal and everlasting attribute by which Allah produces an effect. Yani creates. They meant there creates an effect. Yani, or you could just say He affects, by which He affects the contingent beings. That means the created things, the things that don't have a necessary existence, the possible things. So this is good language here that is theological and philosophical, but not to say that they're talking philosophy. No. I mean that just as far as the realm, the way things are worded, because maybe a lot of our brothers and sisters, even though you learn right religion and right belief, you might not know how some people talk, how some philosophers talk, or how some people who are people who talk about theology, how they talk, the words they use. So this is good. MashaAllah. I.e., anything whose existence at one time and inexistence at another time is intellectually possible. That's what's meant by contingent beings. Something that has a possible existence, not a necessary existence. It might not be existing at one time and then be existing at another time. I remember once I had a debate, and it was the first time I encountered someone who used the word accident to mean arad, which is the attribute of the creation. They used the word accident. And at first I thought, what is this ignorant person? Who is he talking about? It was my ignorance, just not being accustomed to the way some people talk. Even though I still don't use that word, though. By His power, Allah makes things exist, and He makes them cease to exist. The one who does whatever He wills, i.e., Allah has the power to bring into existence whatever He eternally willed to exist. Yes. Nothing can render Allah powerless to do so. Yani, nothing can render Allah powerless to do what He wills. So those are two different attributes. The power, that's one attribute. Will, that's another attribute. The power is His attribute by which He brings something into being from nothingness. The will is His attribute by which He makes something one way or another, gives it some qualities over other qualities. Those are two different attributes. So don't mix them. And once I asked Shaykh Samir, so many years ago, when I was still just learning, maybe we were just learning Sirat for myself for the first time. So I asked him, what's the difference between power and will? And then he just repeated what I already knew. The power of Allah is His attribute by which He brings the non-existent into existence. The will of Allah is His attribute by which He specifies the possibility with some qualities over others. So what are we saying here with these two attributes? Allah has the power to do whatever He wills. He does whatever He wills without toil, that's without exhaustion, and no one prevents Him from doing it. Whatever Allah willed eternally to be existing shall be existing. And whatever Allah did not will eternally to be existing shall not be existing. And here's for your information. When you say be, you don't have to say existing. This is completely appropriate though, because they're explaining. But I'm just telling you so that you know. It's good for you to have some versatility in your language. You want to talk to people and you want to understand what others are saying. The word be means existing. So had not the word existing not been there, would still be right. Whatever Allah willed to be shall be, and whatever He did not will to be shall not be. The will of Allah does not change because the change of the will implies origination, and origination is impossible to be attributed to Allah. Though maybe the word the here doesn't have to be here, because change of the will, any change in the will of Allah Ta'ala, but it's fine. The one without whom no sin is avoided and no obedience is fulfilled. Nice, that's nice. We usually say the one whom without his help no one can avoid sinning and no one has the strength to obey. So that's nice, concise wording there. The one without whom no sin is avoided and no obedience is fulfilled, i.e., no one can evade sinning except with Allah's protection, and no one has the ability to obey Him except with Allah's help. The one who is attributed with all proper attributes of perfection, like knowledge, power, and will, and is exalted above all what is considered imperfection if attributed to Him, i.e., whatever does not befit Him, like ignorance, powerlessness, color, boundaries, and occupying a direction and place, comma, because they are all attributes of the creation. Hence, Allah exists without a place. Now, here, the one who is attributed with all proper attributes of perfection. We usually would say befitting attributes of perfection. That works fine. With all befitting attributes, all proper attributes of perfection. And is exalted above all what is considered imperfection if attributed to Him. Maybe it's all that is considered, and is exalted above all that is considered imperfection if attributed to Him, but looks like from the word ma, so it came out what here in the translation. Also probably was al there, at-taghayyur, or the like. Sometimes the al doesn't have to necessarily be translated, sometimes. So the one who is attributed with all proper attributes of perfection. So here, this is very summarized talk, which it should be. I'll just unravel a little bit for you here. We're talking about using words for Allah Ta'ala, the one who's attributed with all proper attributes of perfection. We're talking about words that we can use for Allah Ta'ala, like knowledge, power, and will. And He's exalted above all that is considered imperfection if attributed to Him. Meaning, does not befit Him. Like ignorance, powerlessness, color, boundaries, and occupying a direction. Okay. But you should know that some words, when you use them, they are for creation's excellence, but not perfection for Allah. Some words, when you use them, they are perfection for Allah, and they are excellence for the creations. Some words, when you use them, they are excellence for the creations and imperfection for Allah. So knowledge, for example, if you say God has knowledge, then that's perfection for God. That's befitting. That's proper. If you say, for example, Prophet Muhammad has knowledge, that's not comparing Prophet Muhammad to Allah, alayhi salatu wassalam, or Ash-Shafi'i has knowledge, then this is excellence for the creation. Prophet Muhammad, Ash-Shafi'i, or anyone else. So this word in both cases means something good. When we use it for Allah, it means something good. And when we use it for the creation, it means something good. And what it means for Allah is different from what it means for creation. Then there's words, if you use them for the creation, it would be excellence. But when you use it for Allah, it's imperfection, like health. If you say the baby is healthy, then that's excellence. But we don't say Allah is healthy, it doesn't befit him. Or if you say, for example, Lady Aisha was intelligent, she had intelligence, that's excellence for creation. We don't say Allah is intelligent, doesn't befit him. You said for the creations, can we say excellence but with restrictions or limitations? You can, you don't have to though, because something can be more excellent than something else anyway. That's why I'm not using the word perfection for the creation. You're welcome. Because we had heard our teachers saying in English previously, the perfection of the creation, one creation can be more perfect than another creation. For me, never sat well. Because to me, perfect means absolute. That's the limit. Not limit, but that's absolute. It's not relative. For me, perfection is not something relative so that you'd say perfect, more perfect. But the Arabic word is kamal. So Allah has kamal and the slaves have kamal. And in Arabic you can say akmal, more, have more kamal. So Allah has the kamal, the perfection. Slaves have some kamal, some, I'm going to say, excellence. And then it's relative between the slaves, because one would have more knowledge than another, one would have better health than another, one would be more beautiful than another. But the beauty itself is an excellence. Knowledge for the creation itself is an excellence. Health in itself is an excellence. Then it's relative between the slaves. And furthermore, there are words that are for Allah perfection and for the slaves imperfection. Like Jabbar. It is a perfection to say that Allah is Al-Jabbar. And that can be explained in different ways. That's one of his 99 names that came in the Revelation. Al-Jabbar could mean the one who fixes the situations of the slaves, could mean the one who controls everything. But for a slave, it would mean tyrant or bully. That's imperfection. Or like to say Allah is Al-Mutakabbir. For Allah, Al-Mutakabbir means the one who is perfect. The one who is very great. Al-Mutakabbir, that's an emphatic form of Kabir. Al-Kabir means Al-Azim, great. Al-Mutakabbir is very great. But for a slave, mutakabbir means arrogant. So you need to be mindful about the words that you use for Allah and the words that you use for the slaves. What denotes a perfection for Allah or an excellence for the slaves, and what does not? So, He is the one who is attributed with all proper attributes of perfection, like knowledge, power, and will, and is exalted above all that is considered imperfection if attributed to Him, like ignorance, powerlessness, color, boundaries, and occupying a direction and place, because they are all attributes of the creation. Hence, Allah exists without a place. As Allah said, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. Nothing resembles Allah in any way, and He is attributed with hearing and sight. Yani, unlike Him is there anything, and He is the hearer, the seer. Allah mentioned first in this verse, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ. Nothing resembles Allah in any way, prior to mentioning وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ, and He is attributed with hearing and sight. So that no one would misconstrue that the hearing and sight of Allah are like the hearing and sight of others, because Allah is dissimilar to the creations, as Dhunnun al-Misri, may Allah raise his rank, said. Or if you want, you could put a period here. Period, end sentence, start a new sentence. This is because Allah is dissimilar to the creations, as Dhunnun al-Misri, may Allah raise his rank, said. مهما تصورت ببالك فالله بخلاف ذلك. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah is different from it. Thus, Allah is eternal without a beginning to His existence. Or maybe that should be without a beginning for His existence. And everything else is originated, that means created, has a beginning, has an origin, means comes from non-existence, which means everything other than Allah existed after inexistence or non-existence. And He is the only creator of all beings, and everything else, i.e. the whole universe, is a creation that has a beginning for its existence. Or maybe it's two, I just find it strange. A beginning to its existence. Also here, universe. You might have heard me before. That word universe, I don't usually prefer it. Sometimes I'll use it, but I think that has potential to make a person imagine something that's untrue, which is what people learn in their, let's say, Western education. Universe to so many people means this endless void of blackness. It goes on without an end, although according to them or some of them, it's expanding. It's endless but expanding at the same time. That's impossible. I argued with somebody about that who was adamant that it's not impossible to be endless and at the same time be expanding. And that it has stars that are billions of years away from each other. Each star is really a sun. The sun that we see, that's the closest star to us according to them. And when they say that there's this universe and it has galaxies and things like that, they don't confirm a sky like what's in the Quran and in the Sunnah, which is a physical object. There are 7 heavens, 7 skies, or heavens, or firmaments. And then above the 7th one is the garden, paradise. And there are 7 earths, one below the other. Below that 7th earth is hellfire. Rather, they say there's a sun which is a star really like all the other stars. And in fact, they say it's so small. It's really a small star. One of the smallest out there. And this Earth of ours, it's just this one Earth, and it goes around the sun. And there's other planets too. They used to say there's 9, and now they don't know, is Pluto a planet or something else? So that's why I like to avoid the word universe usually. But and other times you'll say universe and it means everything in existence. And that's what they meant here. What would I use instead of universe? I would use world. Still has a potential for confusion though. Because world could mean just the earth only, and world could mean everything. Can you expand on what is meant by 7 layers of earth? I didn't say 7 layers of earth. There are 7 earths. This one that we're on is the first one. It's the highest one. Below this earth, there are 6 more. One below the other. Each one is its own earth. There are 7 earths and there are 7 skies or 7 heavens or 7 firmaments. That are all physical bodies. And the sun and the moon and the stars are between what we see, that is. Between this earth of ours and the sky above us. That sky above us is a solid object. So Allah is eternal without a beginning for His existence, and everything else is originated, which means everything other than Allah existed after in existence. And He is the only creator of all beings, and everything else, i.e. the whole universe, is a creation that has a beginning for its existence, or to its existence. The whole universe, with all its generic kinds and individual components, is originated. Yes. Generic kinds, that means like star, that's some generic kind of thing. And tree, and stone, and human, that's some kind of thing. Each one of those is some kind of thing. Every kind is created, and individual components, meaning every individual star, every individual tree, every individual human, those individual components that make up the generic kinds, they are all originated, all created. Ibn Taymiyyah disagreed with the former about the generic kinds, and he stated, like the philosophers, that the generic kinds of the universe are eternal without a beginning. That's nice too, though, generic kind. Consequently, the Muslims deemed him a kafir. That's right. As opposed to some person, I saw a recording, it's called Asrar Rashid. He supported Ibn Taymiyyah here. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. It's kufr to believe that anything other than Allah has no beginning. So what was Ibn Taymiyyah saying? Ibn Taymiyyah was saying, yeah, every individual thing, it is created, of course. But before that individual thing, there was another one of that kind. And then before that one, there was another one of that kind. There was always some kind of creation. That's what he's saying. There was always some kind of creation existing, even if each individual one was created. So he thinks that the fact that he's saying that each individual is created, so that means each individual has a beginning, is saving him from kufr. This is what I saw in that recording of that person. That each individual thing, since it has a beginning, that saves him from kufr, and he's ignoring the fact that he's saying, but in eternity, in beginningless existence, there was always some kind of creation. That's kufr. And the source of that is philosophy, not our religion. Didn't come from the Prophet ﷺ or the Quran. When some scholars of Ahlul Sunnah said, Allahu khaliqun fil azal موصوف بخلق في الأزل, that Allah is creator in eternity, attributed with creating in eternity. They didn't mean there was always something, some kind of thing existing with Allah. That's not what they were saying. They were just confirming that Allah has a description, which is being the creator, and therefore He has the attribute, which is creating. And that doesn't mean that there was always something existing in eternity. That's shirk. The book or reference where Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned this. Yeah, I can. He mentioned it in several of his books. Yeah, I'll tell you some. I'll give you some. Bismillah. Yes, so he said it in many of his books. He repeated this. In his book, Minhaj Sunnati Nabawiyyah, he said, وإن جاز أن يكون نوع الحوادث دائما لم يزل. Although it is valid that the creations in their kind would be forever beginningless, فإن الأزل ليس هو عبارة عن شيء محدد, because eternity is not an expression of something specific. بل ما من وقت يقدر إلا وقبله وقت آخر. Instead, there is no moment of time, but that before it, there was another moment. That's Ibn Taymiyyah's verbatim. The Arabic is verbatim, and then the English is a pretty literal translation of what he says. And then here's another one. Ibn Taymiyyah says, in his book, موافقة صحيح المنقول لصريح المعقول, فإن الأزلية هو نوع الحادث لا عين الحادث. Certainly, what is eternal is the type of creation, not the created thing itself. Question, can you repeat the meaning of Allahu khaliqun fil azal? Yeah, those scholars who said that, that's the Maturidis and Abu Hanifa and others, and our Shaykh says it also. That Allah is khaliqun fil azal, so they're confirming for him the description. So if he has this description, he must have actually the attribute. So therefore, he's attributed with khalq fil azal, creating or creation, if you want. Creating or creation in eternity. And they said, wal makhluqu hadith, but the created thing comes into existence after non-existence. It's not eternal, not in its kind nor its individual element. They weren't saying Allah is always creating something in eternity. In fact, that was the argument of Al-Ash'ari, who didn't say those words like that. Al-Ash'ari was saying, you're saying that there was always something in eternity. But they weren't saying that. So they said, well, you're saying that he's creator without having the attribute of creating. And then he had to explain also his position. I don't want to go into that. I'm not going to answer that anyway. Don't even ask me for now, because we're about to end now. Maybe another time. I just want to make the point that none of them were saying that there's an eternal type, that there's always some kind of thing in eternity. Consequently, the Muslims deemed him a kafir. Wallahu a'lam. We'll stop there. Do you have any question I can answer for you? So that one that they call him Asrar Rashid, he defended this. He said this is a position. According to the recording I saw, maybe that's an AI. It wasn't really him. According to the recording I saw, that had his image and his voice.
Firstly, Muslim theologians did not declare anyone who claims that God has been creating ad infinitum as disbelievers. Like Ibn Taymiyyah, for instance, the Damascene theologian, he claimed that God has been creating ad infinitum, that there has been creation in coming into existence and sustained by God for eternity. So Muslims did not declare him a disbeliever based on that.
He accepted that. That's kufr. You said, where did he come from? He's over in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know much about him. Well, for sure, if somebody's going to say something like that, you're not going to want to take from him. That means he doesn't know what he's talking about. Just this talk, this idea, it comes from philosophy. It comes from philosophy.